Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a review, and spoiler-free review, of the Warcraft movie. um, and talk about a couple of different aspects of that. See, because, full disclosure, I am biased. Now, to be fair, everyone is. Everyone is. You can't actually claim to be a critic and be unbiased. You can do certain things objectively, you can discuss certain things objectively, but even when you try to be objective, you wind up being subjective, and film is completely subjective. So, as I said, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that before I started, that I am biased. I have liked Warcraft for as long as I can remember. I started playing the original RTS when I was very, very young, and I've been playing WoW pretty much since launch. Like, I actually got my first full-time job just in time for WoW to come out, so I could pay for it. So you know that I am a fan of Warcraft. Now here's the thing. Is the movie good? It is very much for the fans. I enjoyed it immensely. Like, a lot. There was a lot in there that I liked. The characterization was pretty good. Like, if you've played the games, you will recognize the characters. You will know the characters. They do a pretty good job of bringing them to the screen. The CGI on the mocap for the orcs and everything was amazing. That might actually be one of my only, like, well, I say only, that might be one of my actual concerns, is that the orcs were more emotive than the humans in a lot of scenes, but we'll digress. If you like Warcraft, if you like WoW, you are going to like the film. This film was made for fans. It was made with them in mind, it was made by fans for fans, and that's it. That right there is why it's actually a good movie. You see, there have been several reviews, and I'm going to go into the negative, objective filmmaking things in a minute, but there have been a lot of reviews that have been listing "it's made for fans" as a negative thing. If you browse through Rotten Tomatoes, which is a waste of time anyway, you'll see rotten reviews where it basically just says, oh yeah, this was just made for fans of the game. Yeah, exactly. Fans of the game. It's fans of the game that it was made for, because they're the fans. They're the ones who are going to want to go see it. So that can't be a negative thing to me. Anyway, there were some things wrong with the film, objectively speaking. I don't think they're as bad as the critics are making out, though. Some of the editing was weird in places. Of course, I'm filming, so naturally there'll be traffic. The quietest place in the apartment, and the editing was off in a few places, in my opinion. Not as bad as some of the critics are making out. I don't think this film is a complete mess of editing. I wouldn't call it a mess at all, but there were definitely a couple of scenes where the edit seemed a little weird, where it would jump back and forth between scenes. Though I did also still understand what was going on and why it was happening. That being said, as I said, objectively, as much as anyone can be objective when they're talking about film, it was a little weird in places. Acting-wise, I don't think it was awful, but like I said, I think the guys and girls playing the orcs were usually better than the humans. That being said, that Medivh was without a doubt my favourite character in the film. The guy playing him, whose name completely evades me, just did an amazing job with it. Anything else? There were for a negative for fans might be the changes from the actual lore, but that being said, they're not that big of changes. Some of them are. But it's the sort of thing where if you know the story, it's still going to be the basics of what you know. Some people have complained that the film takes itself too seriously compared to the game. I don't think that's necessarily true. There are several tongue-in-cheek jokes in there. It's just that I feel like the people who play the game, looking at the cartoony style and everything else, a lot of them haven't really ever taken into consideration that the story is pretty dark in places. I mean, if you've played the game, even if you've only played WoW, and if you played it for any amount of time, by now you must have realised that shit does go down. I mean, the next expansion is going to be about one of the biggest bad guys coming back, and basically hell. Literal hell. You know? So yeah, I wouldn't say it takes itself too seriously. I would say that it isn't as... it's not cartoony at all. But there are definitely jokes in there. I mean, there are references to the game. I heard actual quotes from the games. Like, you hear Loktar Ogar, you hear me not that kind of orc. They have so many Easter eggs for not just WoW, but like the whole franchise of games and books in there. But there are still changes to the canon, and I know that people like to complain about things changing when they're adapted to film. I mean, just look at Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Digressing though, like I said, if you enjoy the games at all, you're going to like this movie. I would say that if you like fantasy movies, you're still probably going to like this movie. I wouldn't compare it to Lord of the Rings. I really wouldn't. Lord of the Rings still holds the title of fantasy movie. It just does. I would say this might be closer to The Hobbit, in that it is... actually, no, I take it back. I'll tell you what this reminds me of is the 80s fantasy movies. Not in quality necessarily, or at least not in actual film quality, but in style. Like Kroll or Hawk the Slayer. They very much just throw you into the movie, which is another complaint people have had. They throw you in, they throw names around. And there's a lot of complaints that there's no like, one review says there's too much exposition, which I think the guy just didn't know what exposition is, because there is no exposition, but there are names. Oh, where's Medivh? I don't know where Medivh is. Where's Medivh? Oh, where's the Guardian? And you don't need to know who Medivh is straight away. Like, they can say Medivh and it's like, oh, who's Medivh? And if you're complaining about the fact that they don't go, Medivh is the wizard guardian of the world, before he arrives, that's your own problem. Now granted, they do throw out a lot of names. And there was a couple of times when my wife said to me, well, leaned over to me and whispered, like, she asked, but only a couple of times. Like, the rest of the time, she, as someone who's not really played the games and has no background on the story, still got on just fine. I think the most confusing thing that they could do in the movie was, at one point, King Lane refers to Lothar as Anduin, without mentioning beforehand that his name is Anduin, and that threw my wife a little bit when he suddenly had a different name. It wasn't 100% clear that Anduin Lothar is his full name, but it wasn't too much of a struggle. It does set up for sequels. I mean, it inevitably sets up for sequels, and I would be shocked if there isn't a second movie, especially considering the amount of money it has already made. It's already made over its budget, and this is the opening American weekend. It made its budget before it opened here. So It definitely sets up for sequels, which I know a lot of people have trouble with, but at the same time, I personally felt like it sat well on its own. It's a singular chapter. It works. It obviously is going to continue, but it sits as its own thing. If you like Warcraft, you're going to enjoy the film. If you like fantasy movies, especially The Hobbit, Kroll, Hawk the Slayer, Wizards, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy the movie. If you don't like fantasy movies, you probably won't get much enjoyment out of it. You might get enjoyment out of the action sequences. You might get enjoyment out of the CGI if you're just into CGI and technology like that. But this is definitely one for Warcraft fans, and I would say it's probably one for fantasy fans. So the question is, and this is something I'm actually going to do a separate video on, is just ignore the reviews. Don't go to Rotten Tomatoes. If a film ever looked interesting to you, go see that film. The chances are, if you like Warcraft, you were already interested in the film. Go see the film. If you're into fantasy movies, the chances are that you saw the trailer and was interested. So go see the film. Don't let reviews put you off a film. Don't let critics tell you what's good and what's bad. I enjoyed the film. I highly recommend the film. So go check out the film. Have fun.